You were my babysitter at one point in life. What are you up to?
30-ish years ago.
And you also recognize the word Yeshua Mashiach.
Yes, sir.
I mean, hey, I've talked a whole boatload about myself on the show. Mm-hmm. So what was it like being my babysitter?
What was it like being your babysitter? It was great. And
you're good. You're just a quiet talker.
I was in high school when I met your dad. I was 15 and I worked on a job with him, and he ended up having me come out here and work with you. Work on your property, and then
working with kids is kind of work. Hey, you're affecting someone who the impact you had on my life has been omnipresent for 20 years now. Because you were probably around when I was like 8. I was pretty young.
I started coming out right when Colton was born. And then, ever so often here and there, your dad would have jobs. I'd come out here and he'd give me the option. He'd be like, all right, I'll pay you $5. You come out here and you just play basketball, hang out, let the kids follow you, whatever. You don't have to do any work.
Perfect. The dream.
Or I'll pay you $7 or $8 an hour and you actually work, and then the kids will be out following you around. So some days I'd come out, it was a $5 day, $5 per hour, play basketball, hang out, run around the property.
And to jump forward to nowadays, you're wearing fireproof hoodie because you're one of the people who works on electricity. I got a kinesiology degree, mm-hmm. which sounds like electricity, but it's human body. Mm-hmm. You kind of actually did get an electricity degree.
Working on it.
Those big places that look like, it looks like almost a fake thing. Like, what do they make electricity there, or do they like temporarily store it? I have questions about electricity.
Those are substations, I think you're talking about. So like the electricity comes from a generation plant and it flows through high voltage lines to the substation, and then they take the massive amounts of electricity and lower it into smaller levels to where it goes out through the cities, at which point it gets lowered down through transformers to go to your house. So it's kind of like thinking of a river where you have like the big river and then little rivers coming off and then little creeks coming off of that go to your house with electricity, sort of. But the substation's where it kind of branches off.
Interesting.
So
and then, this is an episode after about 100 or like a full year off. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to turn this to time. I guess the thing that I will say about my life is I recently, and it's unfortunate, and honestly, it kind of clicked while I was cleaning up this place, is mm-hmm. that I'm getting out of a 9-year-long relationship, or it would have been 9 years on February 13th. I don't know how much you want to talk about your personal life, but what advice would you have for a 28-year-old who is now... so I met her when I was 19, mm-hmm. so I was kind of a kid, and I still feel like a little bit of a kid. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have if you were in my exact position?
If I was in your exact position, I would probably take a step back. I would focus on making yourself the best you can be.
Do you need to take a step back to do that, though? That's been my whole... Everyone gives me the advice to take a break or maybe pause in life. And my biggest quandary is how to get people past that to be like, okay, so say I'm well rested now. Then what advice would you have?
Well, I don't mean like take a big step back and like sit there and just meditate for a while. I mean, like take a moment to like kind of make like a next step.
So that's where I'm at. And I'm an open book. So if you have any advice, I'd love, because it's fun to get advice from people who have hey, you just grabbed a hoodie for your 17-year-old daughter today?
16, yeah.
16. And I was going to say, I'm like, man, well, she could be the coolest person in school, but she's homeschooled.
Yeah.
Which is cool. What's it like homeschooling and specifically bullying in homeschool would be my biggest question for you.
I would say they don't have to deal with bullying, really.
It's probably a good thing.
And depending on how it's done.
Because you're the main bully. You just bully.
No.
You have 6 kids. That's
6 kids.
7, including me. I mean, if you are there for formative years and someone, like my dad referred to you as his kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think people using this term, seeing each other as their kid colloquially, kind of just more of like a common understanding of like, oh, hey, like, I think a lot of people see each other as family members, but we don't ever talk about it like that.
It's interesting, like you hear like in a lot of my times listening to certain cultures, they'll refer to like their close friends and family friends as like my cousin.
Definitely.
They might not be their
cousin. I didn't
cousin.
pick up on that. That must be an LA thing, because I didn't pick up on that until it was way too late.
And so like they're not really your cousin, but they're like your cousin, you know. Like I think of your father, you know, some of my formative years, I was 15, and your dad was one of probably a couple guys that I got to see a different way that they raised their sons, and being here so often, so consistently over an 8-year period or so, you know, I got to see how different fathers parent. I got to watch him parent you and Colton from a young age. He treated me like a son every time I was out here, you know.
Well, and it sounds like it impacted how you raised your kid, or had some level of impact. So that's the interesting branching of it all. Is I think a lot of guys don't want to be babysitters, but when you actually think of the impact you're having when you are interacting with youth rather than people who are maybe more set in their ways, it's actually a high leverage point for having like reducing suffering, because you're just taking the upstream, the kids who like haven't necessarily had or like you're giving them people a chance, like kids an opportunity to see life differently. Homeschooling 6 kids would be a boatload, man. That sounds like a handful.
I would say that's like my wife is my wife is pretty much, you know, I'm at work a lot, so she has taken on a lot of the responsibility. And as my apprenticeship's coming to an end, you know, I'm wanting to step in a little bit more into their lives. I've been living away from the house for a lot, so you know, it's hard to parent and hard to do a lot of that stuff.
It must be an interesting balance to be working for your kid's best life, but then it seems like a trade-off of how much you work versus how much time you spend directly with them. And so I'm curious what you think of the 3-word phrase, love is war. That's been one that I still am not conceding on completely, but I do think has some merit to it, of when you love someone and when you commit to loving someone, it's kind of like you're going to war with them, because all's fair, first off. And second off, you care and you can't not care. And so it's as if you're fighting for a cause that you care about so deeply that you're, you know, it's an interesting balance, I guess. But you're a lot for, you know, you're at a much different place in life. So I'm curious how that 3-word phrase kind of sits with you.
3-word phrase.
Love is war.
Love is war.
Let me check the cameras.
I would say that I'd say love is war, but not in the sense like, I'd say love is war in that you have to war with yourself a little bit.
Definitely.
More than your spouse.
Definitely.
And all is fair. I'm not sure that that's how I don't think all is fair when it comes to relationships.
Go into that.
I think that it's just not always fair. Like,
Well said.
it's not
Fair only exists in in a child's mind is a phrase that's hard to get out of my head.
Yeah, it's not always equal. Like, the balance of responsibility changes back and forth depending on the children, what's going on, how much someone's working. Like, especially with 6 kids, like, oftentimes you feel like you're drowning kind of, and like there is no balance. Like, you do the best you can and try to figure it out. At least I'm sure there are dads that balance it better than I have, but I haven't I haven't balanced it as good as I know I could.
I think people could always say that about themselves. And specifically, I've just had a tirade of people who love me try to care about me by trying to get my mental health even better. And it gets to a point where it's like, how good is good enough for some people? And so for you just like self-judging of like, oh, you maybe didn't balance this because like, why not just be like, hey, you did your best. Like, I think throughout all human history, everyone's woken up every day and been like, what the fuck? How am I going to make sense of any of it? How am I going to keep this boat together? And like, for example, my relationship just failed because I couldn't keep a cohesive story, like a kind of like a narrative of like, I think the future could look like this. Because what I'm learning is that women really want stability and men want risk. Maybe it's not, like maybe that's painting with a broad brush. That's my understanding of the female to male dynamic is men like kind of just like do spurts of conquer and then the women stabilize.
I would say one of the most important things I've learned is, as a husband, as a father, is creating stability, creating safety, creating containment. And when I do that, like in our relationship, when we have arguments or different things, as I look back, I know that, I mean, you can give it an arbitrary number of who's at fault with this. I do this, she does that. But when I look at it, if I was creating the safety and creating the containment, creating the stability a little bit better in certain areas, like whatever percentage she has would be shrunk down so much because it's a reaction to the safety that I'm creating. And it's taken a long time to learn that.
You sound like a chick right now. No, I'm kidding. It's something I should probably get more into. I mean, what I really learned is I'm like, Jesus, every time I make any insult toward anyone, I really am saying a lot about myself. And I've done a pretty good job of not ever saying flagrant things. But at the end of the day, I do still have the opinion that the world's becoming feminized in a way that is a detriment to most men. But you're in a relationship in this current world, and you seem not only happy, you're making time for your 7th unofficial kid. I appreciate that. You're up in Oregon.
Yeah, as far as that goes, like I think it's important for me personally to take responsibility for myself and my actions,
Definitely.
my job of creating that safety and letting the chips fall after that. And then if there's something to deal with, there's something to deal with.
What was it like the first time you got someone pregnant? Because I just went through that and it was such an experience that I don't want to get into it. So I'm curious to hear if you're open to talking about what it's like for other guys.
For me, we were sitting in the living room and we kind of had this sort of like thought and feeling that she might be pregnant. And it kind of came up in a quick conversation, like almost like, what if? And then I was like, I'm just going to the store. So I walked to the Albertsons, got a test, went to pay for it. Right when I'm in line about to pay for it, I look over in one of the tabloids and it says, guess who's pregnant? And I was like,
life is synchronous in a way that's hard to ignore, especially in key moments. Were you still religious at that time, or had you already kind of gone out of
it was like
traditional faith?
17 years ago. And I went through kind of phases where it was more religious, less religious, and sort of. And that was sort of like one of the ones where I'd consider myself religious, but I wasn't like going to church a bunch or doing any of that.
With your kids, are you impressing? Because I grew up with both my parents had some level of religious trauma, so they both kind of thankfully shielded me from it. But it did lead to me kind of becoming a Buddhist, and being a pest about it. Like, at the end of the day, whenever I see someone who I'm just like, let's really just means test how cognizant this person, I just say, desire is suffering. And a lot of people argue with it, like, well, you have to do something with your life. And I'm like, I'm at the point where I am hey, I'm not someone who should be giving advice, but I guess I'm curious Are you instilling it like a sense of God without the cultish attachments? Or like, where are you? Where do you sit with things in life? You recognize Yeshua Mashiach, which you're one of like 3 people in my life. And so I don't really know what that is. But I've heard it in songs.
It's just an old phrase that means like basically Jesus the Messiah. It's like Yeshua. Yeshua means Joshua. And,
that's helpful.
But
was Jesus' name Joshua?
I think so. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it means in Hebrew.
Cool. If anything, I would say I'm almost Jewish in the sense that the more I learn about the aspects of what has kept that people going, has been very beneficial in my life. Because I grew up with I don't think I ever went to church, Christian church once. But then the Christian pressure of anything that brings pleasure is sin and to be rejected. It just seems so omnipresent in culture where everyone's like, anything that brings you pleasure in life should be avoided. And I'm like, then you spend your whole life avoiding something.
Yeah, I think that can be an interpretation that gets pushed on people, especially in Christianity or Catholicism or Mormonism or a lot of...
They hate Abrahamics.
Any religion in a lot of ways, you know.
I'd love to imagine a Buddhist monk kid like, Mom and Dad, I don't want to be a fucking Hindu and go to a monastery. I want to go to a party.
Well, what was it that that monk that was... What's that religion where they search out a child when the Dalai Lama, or not the Dalai Lama, but that sort of Eastern religion thing, and they search out for the next whatever
like
reincarnation,
spiritual leader,
the next reincarnation of that position, and like I think one of them left. And like,
Krishnamurti, so that's how I fell into Buddhism, is reading his story. He was picked and he was groomed to be this spiritual religious leader. And the first time he gave a talk, he said, don't listen to me. In fact, don't follow any path. Freedom comes from following your own God-given mission here on earth. And anyone who tells you otherwise is kind of looping you into something that you're going to have to be unlearning for the rest of your life. And I was like, Jesus, thanks for telling me this. Because I think I started reading him based on Naval Ravikant's suggestion. Thanks, Naval. And it's had a tremendous impact. The books you read as a kid and the music you listen to really fucking impact your life. I listened to Lee Moses' Bad Girl, and it was to a point where lyric for lyric, I had the life experiences to the point where I'm like, Jesus, is Elon Musk correct that this is just a simulation? But when you start thinking it's a simulation, you really do start sounding crazy. Mm-hmm. At least in my experience.
I think there's a lot of synchronicities in life. I think because of that, you know, because of the synchronicities in life, it's easy if you are religious to sort of say it's because of this. If you're thinking about...
So I don't have a thing to say it's because of. It's not like, oh, thanks to Jesus for that synchronicity.
But I mean, if you think everything's just a simulation, then you can attest it to that. You know, whichever your life beliefs, you can attest your synchronicities to whatever it is you believe. And so, I mean, there are people that think Christians are crazy for saying just as many things about synchronicities. Like when I was probably 8 years old, my mom, we went to the Lane County Fair. My mom won a free megabuck, like a scratch-off ticket at the entrance, which gave her a free megabucks. So she went and got random numbers, and I was with a friend that was like 9 years old that my mom wanted to take to the fair with us. She was from a poor family. They were living in a shed outside of their boss's house, and you know, she just kind of put that megabucks in her purse. We drove, dropped her off, and as soon as she walked through the fence to go back to her parents, her shoulders slumped, and she just dragged her way back, you know, like she just went from having the best time to just sadness. And my mom started crying. And so I prayed that we'd win the lottery and we could give them the money and that they'd be able to get an apartment. You know, like, it's easy to attest that.
That's a great thing to pray for. That's a beautiful thing to even put into the world of something to hope.
Yeah. We've got 5 out of 6 numbers, and back in like 88, it was like $1,300 or something.
And that's when money was actually real too. Well, like $1,300 was not like a joke.
It was high. Yeah. It was a lot more than it is now. And they were able to get an apartment, you know, and
that's
I can
awesome.
say, that was Jesus.
Your manifesting powers seem pretty strong as a youth there. What'd you do with them since then?
I don't know.
Got to be careful what you wish for. Once you have a wish or a dream come true. For myself, I did take a step back and I said, holy shit. Okay. So if dreams really do come true, what I wish for, and especially what I say out loud, is very, very important. Like you
don't always really want what you wish for when you get it.
Yeah. I mean, the punishment of getting what you wanted is getting what you once wanted is so true, to a point where I'm like, the desire is suffering has helped me in the sense of it leaves me saying I don't want to have, and like a desire, and it leaves more space for synchronicities or God to come in and kind of fill that middle ground. But now I'm running up against a wall where everyone's like, well, you're an adult now. So no one else can live your life for you. But I'm like, but I just want to get a job. I just want someone else to give me direct. Like, I mean, hey, when you're an apprentice, it's kind of nice to have linear progress in life, right? Like, hey, if I do well, then I have some level of stability or something. I'm at a place where I'm formulating a pitch for a bird named Dove. And essentially whatever pitch I finally do get through that works, and that's impacting the entire trajectory of the rest of my life. And that's every given second of our life. Like, I mean, you go one road and you get in a car accident, you go in another and you get a winning lottery ticket. It can almost stop you in your tracks when you realize how impactful every waking day is. And you've lived like 20 some odd more than me. You're 45?
45.
I'm 28. So yeah, let's just round and say 20. You're 2 levels above me. What is the past 20 years of your life looked like? Because you were kind of more formed. You worked down by the border. We've been talking recently, and we had this similar shared experience of there are some things in life worth being afraid of, and it's interesting to kind of balance. Like, you don't want to ever talk about that to people in your life who you want to be calm and tranquilo. So just kind of holding some beliefs in your head can have a weight to it. What was it like working down at the border?
I was in San Diego, and
San Diego.
I think what I was talking to you about was some of the positions I'd be put in where you'd have some cartel people come across, and you knew they were probably cartel people, and they'd be sitting there, and they'd get there early, they'd eat, and then they'd hang out for like 2 or 3, 4 hours, not ordering too much, but just enjoying the view and maybe a drink here and there. And you've got a 2.5 hour wait, and you're having to tell these people that they have to leave because there's a reservation for that table. And you're like,
would you ever just go tell the busboy, like, hey, go shoo them away? Like, I mean, that seems like, hey, I don't try to pass off many things in life.
Nah, you got to have a suit and tie on, or like a nice shirt to be able to talk to them.
But the fear came sorry to cut into your story. The fear came from to let you continue.
Well, it was just a passing thought of like, you know, you got to handle this delicately because you don't want to be like, you don't know who these people are and what they're willing to do when you get off work at 1 a.m. walking to your car, you know, if you really make them upset. And, you know.
What was your way of letting them down softly of like, hey, you beautiful gentleman, thank you for patronage. Man, people similar but like slightly less beautiful and good as you need this table. If you could relinquish it sooner. Like, how would you, if I was talking to someone who I knew was a cartel member and there was a chance of me getting gadded on my way to the car, I would be like, hey, busboy, go shoo them off.
The busboys aren't quite as articulate
I would
as
give
you
them
become.
I'd give them, well, yeah, but that's not you saying it. And I'd give them my shirt and tie. It's an interesting question of what is putting your life at risk worth. You were on a line recently.
I wouldn't say it was like a deathly situation. Like it got handled, and I was able to, point out these people that need to sit at the table. They've signed a contract for this table at this time, and they've been there for this amount of time. And I would love, we can move you somewhere else. We can, and then it just sort of worked itself out. And there were people that were above me, so
That's nice.
it would have gone to them if there was like a real issue.
At the end of eschewing them. And if you're mad at me, be mad at them.
That's that guy over there.
If they weren't here, but you actually have your life more in your hands recently. The story that you told me that made me be like, do I want to give this guy a hoodie? And not that you could wear it, was you're up on a line and go from there. Because, you're working a job where your life's at risk from electricity, fire, falling. That's a lot, man. Hey, that's a lot of bravery.
Well, I was climbing a pole, and as I was on my way down, I strapped in my secondary below a cross arm and hooked it in and felt it click in. But I didn't look, which you always should look. And this has never happened before, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times.
That's the scary thing. That's how all those things do happen, when they've never happened.
When I undid my top one, I always, before I let go of that, because that I can keep myself up, I leaned back and I just saw my secondary pop out. So then the only thing holding me up like 40-something feet in the air is my hand.
That's an ugly distance. That's a distance where you'd be kind of laying in pain for a long time, potentially.
There were rocks below. Like it would have been a bad situation.
It's wild to think that like 100 years ago, the same kind of work, there was no really safety precautions or any of it.
Yeah, there was a point when people started putting up power lines and working on them. They didn't have the equipment we had, and 1 out of 2 would die.
1 out of 2?
They die. Someone else needs work. Get them up there. Teach them.
Dude, that's insane to think of how safe of times we live in. But it doesn't prevent the mental angst almost of, great, now that there's even less % chance that I'll die, now I really have to have my future kind of planned out. Because, like if there's 1 in 2 chance of dying, it'd be like live every day to the best. And that's an insane statistic. Because
it is pretty insane.
That isn't
like people didn't know how electricity worked. They didn't know how to test. They used to test whether their line was energized by tying a wrench to the end of a long wooden stick, and they call it fuzzing. They don't do this anymore, but you just put it near, and if you saw anything, or like
if you saw any
sparks like or anything, you would know that there's something going on up there that you probably shouldn't touch.
It's making sense why 1 in 2 people died.
Sometimes they'd throw like chains from the ground up over it, and what it would do, like it's supposed to be dead. Can't guarantee it. They'd throw like a chain or something, metal over it, and then it would basically connect the 3 lines. So if there was something, then something crazy would happen up there, which isn't fun, but it's better than that being your 2 arms connected to 2 different things.
Hey, busboy, I'm going to need you to go.
Yeah. Climb up there.
I'm the busboy, though, in life right now. I guess I'm starting at the lowest rung of the ambiguous world that I'm heading into. And you've switched professions. So you were not a busboy, but you worked in restauranteering, and then you made the jump to lineman work. Why? Or how? Or at what point of opening restaurants were you just like, it seems like a productive, way to spend your time. It was like McMinimans or something?
No, I was in San Diego working at a fine dining restaurant at the end of it all. But just kind of, you talk to hundreds of thousands of people a year. It wasn't really, to make the amount of money I wanted to make, I wasn't really wanting to do that kind of work and deal with those situations anymore. I was kind of over it. And since I was like 5 years old, I saw a commercial, and it was all these linemen working on power lines in the rain, and then the commercial was for coffee or something. He comes home and
That's hilarious.
comes home at like 6 a.m, puts on some coffee and brings it to his wife who's just waking up or something like that. And I think it was a Folgers commercial or something, but
that's insane. An ad had that big of an impact on your, like, just to go back
it looked
to
so fun to just, like, growing up in Oregon.
It's an offhand aspect of the ad. It wasn't even what was marketed.
Yeah.
Like, that's really actually a fun story, man.
But it just looks so fun being out there in the rain. Like, I used to love just being in the rain in Oregon is one of my favorite things, and trees all around and stuff. And it just looked fun. And like, I was in kindergarten. Next day they asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I just wrote guys working on power lines, that was the picture I drew.
King electrician.
And so I sort of kept an eye on it throughout life, and they give national averages for how much linemen make, but those are kind of skewed numbers that are a lot lower, but I didn't know that.
All numbers are skewed or skewable.
Yeah, but they just show how much will you make if you make 40 hours a week for the national average, and you're not working 40 hours a week usually. You're working a lot more, and there's a lot more to it. And so, but I didn't know that, so I was always like, oh man, I can't take a $10,000 cut every year just to switch careers right now.
Definitely.
And then when I was 38, I heard how much they actually make, and I was signed up for line school like 2 weeks later, and just been going ever since, just trying to.
I'll give you the thanks, because your kids are never in a place to thank their parent. Thanks for the work you're doing to support 6 kids and a mother. Like, hey, you're doing the Lord's work. Like, that's what I guess my belief in religion is people who are every day waking up and spending their time and energy on bettering either their family, their community, the world at large is kind of where people get maybe docile in their effect. Like, it's easy to be like, it's hard to boil the ocean sort of thing. So I think dude, if your 6 kids come out well-rounded, think about how many people they're going to affect for the positive. I'm looking forward to one day being best friends with your kids.
Mm-hmm. I'd say, like, one thing I was thinking about from earlier, as you were talking about,
those demons like, are making me sin again.
So you're talking about some of these, some advice and different thoughts is, like, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm hopefully going to be a lineman soon. And I think one of the detriments in my life, it's been me putting my identity in those things.
Go into that. What do you mean?
Those things can be taken away from you. Those things can disappear. And so if I put my identity
too heavily into one of them,
being this with my, like, there needs to be like a little air gap between those, because no matter what, like, your identity is you, and it's not what you do. It's not like fully involved in that, because if those things crumble, you still have to have a flame inside of you. You still have to have a separation a little bit. It doesn't have to be a big separation. Like, you can still know how important it is, how much of an effect it has, what your duty is, and you can mourn and grieve and feel bad if you fail in an area.
The way you're talking, has this happened? Have you had, like, the only way that I ever thought of is people who have too heavy an identity in, like, basketball are bound to sprain their ankle and face not being able to do the thing that was their identity. But something like being a father, it seems like being full bore into taking on that identity would be a positive. So I guess I'm curious. It's just really impactful to hear you say not, or to just have some ear gap.
I would say, like, the core of it all shouldn't be your identity in that. Like, that can be a minor identity outside of it that is important, but, like, it can't, like, I mean, it can, like, you can do it. You can totally dive in and have that just be, you don't need to play
devil's advocate. Devil's advocate. What if the devil's advocate is actually the devil? Well, that's a lyric that's really stuck in my mind. I've played devil's advocate a lot less in life. So let's just say you're correct. I'm liking the way that you're explaining it. So you don't need to explain the other side.
Like what you said about basketball, that was my identity in high school.
That's why I said that one.
I got really good at basketball, played a lot, and it didn't really lead to anything. when it was done. I mean, and I remember that last game, and like, just was like, if this is my identity and it's not here, I think that's why a lot of NBA players have a lot of problems after they retire. They don't know what to do with their life. A lot of athletes, football players.
I had an identity of being someone who I thought I was just going to be in a relationship forever. So this is the first time I'm facing. I'm like, gee, like life alone is. And hey, Naval Ravikant, every time I go on X, he mocks me by posting life is a single player game. And for years, I just respond to it. Sounds lonely, but what I've learned is that some things like desire is suffering, love is war, life's a single player game are not really, they can be argued with, but it's just a fool's errand. There's some base truths about life that go down a lot smoother if you just kind of find a way to accept them, is where I'm at. That's where I'm personally at.
I think where it kind of plays in with relationships is if your identity is in that relationship, it can make the relationship unhealthy because there's enmeshment, codependence, and you're not having like your separate lives.
And that's an interesting thing.
That can come together. You end up sort of melding in, and then when anything goes wrong or anything like, or God forbid, one of you dies or something, like you see so often, like couples that are married for 40, 50 years, and then one of them dies, the next one dies like 2 months later because of heartache, and like it was just, they were so tied in identity wise with that person. And you know, maybe that's okay. You know, it's a beautiful thing to see people together that long, but then there's like, I think it's Dokudo, like the way of walking a path alone. Like I think it's
Never heard of that. I like
Japanese samurai thing, whereas like you're not pushing away other people, you're not pushing away relationships, but I think when you're so invested into something to where that thing disappears and you don't really desire to live anymore, or you don't desire to you can't see yourself living the rest of your life, like I think that's a good, like life is a, what'd you say, a single player game.
Some radical transformation had to happen in my own mind to make sense of things. And yeah, I guess if you have a you know, like a 17-year-old, so you've been in a relationship at least 17 years, or you know, that's a long time, man. Congrats. Before that, so you were mid-30s. Were you single for, like, I guess I'm curious, when you were like 28. Hey, I don't really think of Saturn's return.
I was 28 when we met.
Oh wow.
So it's been like 18 going on 19 years that we've, like, we're about to have our 17th anniversary.
17 years, holla.
In April.
Congrats.
But we were dating before that, so.
The weird thing for me is I'm like, what is any, imagine if you had met her earlier in life and you had spent close to like let's even just say 17 years in a relationship, and then even looking at people as an investment again after hypothetically losing one for that long. It's an interesting place to be. It's not like I just have the belief that it's like, well, the time was well spent. It was spent in joy. Because I can't even get into how crazy the ending was. It was just... the other thing that Naval always tweets, and also Ye, is that at the end of the day, taking full responsibility for everything yourself really is the best way forward. Because, yeah, any sort of fighting with anyone for blame just adds tumult to life, it seems like.
Another thing I would say about that is... I'm sure you have all sorts of stuff inside of you that's very painful, and don't suppress it. Like, you get a feeling.
I definitely have cried a lot, and I've realized how vehemently society treats men crying. That's a damn truth. Like, I mean, you're a big guy, so you even have more going against you if you ever get heightened emotionally, where you feel something really strongly. You have to kind of suppress it, or else it's viewed negatively because of the feminization of society. Like, men used to go to war to yell and shoot each other and get shot in the leg and just take morphine and whatever. But nowadays, the war is really internal, and my perception of it is that I really think one of my life missions is going to be going to war with the therapy industrial complex. The concept that another person should have some level of dominion over your mind. Because it seems so, like, it's ubiquitous advice that everyone's just like, you should go to therapy, you should go to therapy. I'm like, why does no one ever have the advice of, it seems like you have a really good, like a decent head on your shoulders? Because I'm like, who is a therapist to be someone to be giving advice?
You know, like I would say, like, you get advice from a lot of people. There's a lot of therapists out there. I would say Naval is a therapist for you to some extent.
100%.
So you take
I've
some of what he
figured
says.
him too.
I think there's
Thanks, Naval.
There's a lot that goes on with that, and not every therapist will have any good advice for you. Not every therapist is going to like completely be trying to take your brain and turn it into what he wants it or she wants it to be. Like, you can look at them as another author of a book that's done stuff in life, or, you know, there's lots of great people out there, and a lot of them are therapists, and there's a lot of bad people, and a lot of those people are therapists.
If it could just be extracted of their eating bread and they're feeding their family is reliant on return customers, it seems like they have such a strong impetus to make it a recurring thing that it's hard to ever talk to one and just be like, this is a one-time thing. I'm just like knocking a thing off a box. And they're just like, well, you're in for the long haul here. And I'm like, no, I'm not though. And it had, just because I was like, what I've learned is also, I'm pretty sure that therapy splits people up. I might not be 100% on that. Hey, maybe Kenzie and I were never a good match, and we just, going into COVID, everyone kind of had to hunker down. Like, and the world is just getting weirder. Like, honestly, so, like, AI's impact on human genetics of, like, how people are meeting and dating, that's a weird thing for me. But I guess everyone had to meet somehow. How'd you meet your wife?
We worked together.
Epic.
Say what?
Epic. Just nice. Just like having a shared kind of, I mean,
she was a bartender. I was a server, and just slowly over time, we got to know each other and started dating pretty much.
I think I'm just going to be a single person for quite a while, because a belief I have that maybe is more controversial is that I really do think trans people are permanently confused and gay people are just confused straight people. And that doesn't even have to be touched on. That's just an interesting, just because like Elon Musk lost one of his sons to the love is war of the wife was supporting like an adolescent, preventing themselves from ever being able to, I think the biological impetus is strong, is what I'm learning, especially as women hit 30 and as men get older. There is some deep-seated desire to have a next step in life. I mean, if you have 6 kids, of course you probably agree with that to some extent.
Real quick before we pass up the therapy thing, where I have seen that, I would say if you're not getting tools in life from them, like I think their job a lot of times is to give tools in life to deal with certain things. Like there's anxiety, and we don't always deal with anxiety appropriately. There's a lot of stuff. And like everyone has, like for me, I know like there are tools out there. I don't necessarily know what they are because you don't know what you don't know. But I'm sure
you don't know what you don't know is.
I'm sure someone a therapist could say something to me and be like, when you do this, it makes you want to do that. That's destructive to what you truly want in life. So try doing this, and then you can work on. So if the therapist,
I'm trying to figure out what I truly want in life.
If the therapist isn't giving you tools, then it's not probably going to be very helpful for you, and you will be coming back. But if you're able to talk to them and you start to see they're giving tools that actually work, like those are just different ways of looking at life and dealing with the situations that are common to human beings, you know?
I agree. I guess I have an odd experience of the first time I ever kind of had confirmation that Ye might know who I was. One of the accounts in there was the therapist. And when you see it just look like the rapist. And rather than the therapist, I really like the concept of therapy becoming there now, rappy. I think a lot of, let's just say, urban people have a lived experience that's so much more intense that a lot of people, upon hearing it, can be like, yeah, my problems are pretty small. Like, I think that alone is kind of what therapy needs to tell people is stop worrying about your petty little problems. And that's why I guess taking a step back in life would be focusing on what's wrong rather than, it seems like growth happens through action. And so that's where I'm at. I'm listening to people like Ghostface Killer.
Growth happens through action in a lot of ways. Growth comes from pain and suffering.
Everyone says it's like a Carl Jung thing of like growth enters through the wound, and I'm like, stop, too soon.
No, I know. It can sound common. It can sound like just a auto answer to a situation. A lot of the oldest advice is the best advice, though, sometimes.
And sometimes advice that is just explaining away, I honestly think most all advice is just like, find a way to explain away whatever happened to you in a way that you don't focus on it for the rest of your life. And so just being like, I don't know. I'm curious how bad ignoring stuff really does come back to bite you.
Quite a bit. Yeah. I mean, you ignore stuff. I mean, sometimes the problems go away. Sometimes they compound until you have 25 more problems, you know.
Jay-Z had 99 problems and a bitch wasn't one. And I'm curious what his 99 problems were. I don't think he ever went into that.
You ever hear this story, like what that was about?
No.
It's about a police dog.
Really?
Yeah, he got pulled over, had drugs in the car, and they were going to get a police dog out there, but there was no dog available or something, so they had to let him go. This is from what I've heard.
God saved him, like in Pulp Fiction. That's divine intervention right there.
That dog is the bitch that was not a problem.
That's hilarious. Thank you. See, stuff like that's really... And that's where there's a bunch of interesting riddles in rap where it can be taken at surface level, but then actually knowing stories about it do add elements. Mm-hmm. I think everyone's just grateful for those times in life where they happened to be saved from God. Like I had that happen viscerally in September, around September 14th or 15th of this year. I was on the side of a freeway talking to 3 police officers, and I got let go without a warning or a ticket. I think they wrote down that I have schizophrenia or Alzheimer's because there's lyrics of like in the Vulture song of, I don't know who I fucked last night. I have Alzheimer's. But I cut out the beginning of it, and I was talking to the police, and I was like, oh, wait, I love this one. I have Alzheimer's. And they're just like, dude, if I write...
They don't want to deal with someone they think is crazy.
Totally. And they're just like, what would even the court case be like? Well, everything he said is going to be used against him. He has every single mental disease in the book, but he seems like he has his head screwed on. So it just became an interesting... Hey, I was at a place where I'm like, okay, I see police as safety people who are literally there to prevent murderers and just people who are actively doing harm upon others. And from my experience, treating every officer like that, of like, hey, thank God you're here. I'm not doing harm to others, has gotten me very far in those interactions, which I hope to have less of. Like another 2 weeks later, I was driving sober, but I got pulled over and there was 4 police officers and they gave me like a walking test. And the girl's like, those are nice shoes. I'm like, they're Yeezys. And it's just like, there's an interesting element to, I definitely would agree that there's white privilege now. For a long time, I was like, anyone who's alive is privileged. And then anyone who has function of all their limbs and eyes and like senses is privileged compared to someone who's paraplegic. And then, so I think it's like tertiary privilege, but there definitely is an aspect to monetary privilege and definitely, like, if I was Hispanic, I'd probably care a lot more about ICE these days.
Yeah, probably.
So it's a blessing to not have to have part of my mind space concerned about stuff like that. Like, I didn't update my passport. I tried, and the payment system was down. And I was like, okay, I'll deal with that later. But then just seeing how, man, the news is just an anxiety device. I really think that's core to my belief system is the more you look at the news, you're looking for a reason to be anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people are just like, Tyger, tune in with the world. And I'm just like, the world's very stress and anxiety inducing. I think more people should tune. I don't like telling people what to do.
I think
I'm not an arbiter of good.
If you're going to tune into the world coming out of your eyes a little more than the world coming out of your screen.
Touch the part of the garden you can see.
I mean, it's nice to have an idea of what they're saying in a broad sense, because you can kind of, there's certain things, you should know when that hurricane's coming. You should know when there was just an earthquake. You should know when there's a heat
lineman
wave.
Especially because you're like, shit, I got to work 80 hours next week. Thanks for keeping the electricity going when people like you are why people like me have comfortable lives.
To some extent. They still don't consider us first responders, so you don't get those discounts, but it's all right. We'll keep the power on still.
I like it. Yeah, there was an ice storm here in Oregon a couple of years ago where Kenzie and I just moved and we had no power for a couple of days, and it makes you just really, really appreciate the modern luxuries of life of like, okay, yeah, all of my problems were so petty compared to being freezing cold and having no access to, because I didn't have clothes. I wasn't into clothing back then. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my clothing was like part polyester and stuff. My biggest thing in life really is I'm an anti-polyester man. People have got to stop just bagging their kids up in a plastic bag. Like if the shirt's 100% polyester, the pants are 100% polyester, and the socks especially, it's kind of like people just bag their kids up and say, okay, go be healthy. And the kid doesn't know what's wrong with them. For me, I felt like a kid who just had something deeply wrong with me. But I'm like, it's not a gender thing. I feel better when I don't have this polyester touching my skin. And so, yeah, I espouse it a lot, and I'll eventually kind of be quieted down on that. I mean, your hoodie's 5% spandex, which is not bad. Spandex has a use; it just it jumps back. Dude, clothing was.
If you want to get a little woo woo and religion at the same time, like there's biblical rules.
Go into it. I'm gonna look at the camera. Keep talking.
There's biblical rules for what fabrics you can wear with other fabrics and mix together, and a lot of people talk about like the rays from the sun and like what gets through and how things are sort of manipulated.
I'm such
at a wavelength level.
Hey,
so who knows whether that's true or not? But
I would say people should start seeing the sun as not the enemy. That's my other thing. Like people who put on sunscreen and wear sunglasses, I look at them, I'm like, you're preventing the best disinfectant in the world. And also, I just feel so much better when I get more. Like I'll literally look at the sun for close to a minute straight occasionally. And I'm in the north, the latitude, I keep it in perspective. But when I was pulled over on the side of the highway, I remember talking to one of the police. I'm like, so when does the body cam shut off? And he kind of whispered, he's like, in about 30 seconds. I'm like, all right, I'm going to just stare at the sun for about a minute. And I just did. And that probably had a big impact on them because they all had brim hats on and sunglasses. And they're like, this guy's insane. But I'm like, just showing that I'm like, time... I got a new lease on life when those police officers let me go. When I was laying there on the side of the highway, I did hear the third one who came, who kind of had the final say. See, like he just whispered to the others. He's like, well, this is going to end up on the White House desk. And I'm like, well, I guess where else would it end up? Because right when they pulled me over, I was like, I've just been in South Central working for a month with Dove and Ye. And I think I didn't realize at the time because they become such normal names to me. But one is a bird, and then the other is you. And I probably, painting with a broad brush, a lot of police officers are probably Christian. So it's probably just like, this guy's working with a bird and me. And I'm like, no, Ye means Kanye. Dude, I got so into it where I'm just taking a step back in life and just realizing it's like, okay.
I do have one piece of advice for you.
Please.
When you stare in the sun.
Yeah.
You can look on your phone and see the UV ray levels of the different times of day. And right when the sun's rising and as it's setting, you have like a certain amount of time. Don't look at the sun when the UV rays are high.
Definitely. Well, people say you'll get blinded during an eclipse. And I'm like, during an eclipse is so fucking safe. I guess I'm being bombastic in how okay I'm trying to make it seem. Like, pretty much I'm just telling people you don't have to be scared of something.
Yeah.
Like, be less scared of nature, especially. Because I do think that there's some level of overly coddling the body leads to autoimmune disease. Of like, if your body has nothing to fight and it's not dealing with anything, it'll turn inward. And I guess that's where therapy is, rather than facing the world, you're just focusing on yourself. I really do think that people pathologize mental illness to a point where it's so prevalent in society because everyone's like, well, we should really be focused on who knows. But mental health doesn't seem to be getting better.
No. I think for mental health, I think things get kind of all over the board. And I think that there's...
How did you become so well-adjusted? That's what I want to ask. You seem zen. You seem at peace. You're someone who I do actively take advice. Hey, man, if you were a therapist, I would come to you and be like, I'm not coming every week, but hey, let's be best friends.
Well, like, there's certain things in life that, like, people have talked about. Like, we were talking about blue zones earlier today. Like, there's certain things in life that are super boring. They're super, like, common. You've heard it your whole life. Like, for a good immune system, one of the huge things, go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's huge. Drink some water, good water, like, stay hydrated. That's important.
Definitely.
Moderation in all things.
Including moderation.
Moderation is important. Eat healthy, exercise. Like, you just do those. That's, like, such a big part of it. And
it is.
And like, I know another thing, like, in this kind of time of life, there's a lot of, like, fear can, what is it in Dune? That famous saying about fear is the mind killer or something like that.
Definitely. Those were better movies than I expected. Kanye has a song, Fear, and it starts off, I don't mean to sin, Father God, this the real me. Couldn't let that tiger slide. He was going to kill me. I'm like, I'm not going to hurt a single fly. But I understood at a certain point that I'm honored to be the butt of the joke. But it doesn't help when I'm explaining my life to people.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be in fashion. I want this to be over with as soon as possible.
Well, you don't have to be. You're a young guy.
All my clothes are this, and when I go out, everyone's like, where do I buy that? And I just want to be able to direct people and be like, go there, so I can wear it. Otherwise, like, I just do wear black shirts. Like, I have to go back to, like, basic clothing. But I'm like, I really think that the oppression of just having, like, all the facades of buildings not have kind of, like, carved architecture. Like, I really think that people are more pleasantly happy when they have art visible in their life.
Yeah. And
so that's maybe my third big, hey man, this is actually really nice for me to hone in on, like, what are my things in life that I have the strongest conviction of fighting for? Because I'd be so honored to go to war with someone and be like, no. Get kids out of polyester. Get out in nature more. Stop focusing on your because you do, like, what you focus on is what your life results in. I don't know. Hey, this will be great because in 10 years we'll see where like, my opinions are probably going to change. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of the podcast is in 30 years, all 6 of your kids will be able to see what you were like speaking to someone who's not like a family member. Like, even if this episode were to not go out, it could be archived and I could send it to you or your wife, or like, just to have it in a bank. Because I never got to know my dad when he was 28. So I kind of started the podcast of being like, well, it's a way of kind of documenting.
Some of my philosophy that I've had over the last 20 years is I've realized every 5 years I look back to 5 years ago and realize what an idiot I was. And I know that in 5 years I'm going to be looking back where I'm at now and think about how much more I've learned and changed. And
it's healthy to always see one as an idiot.
And so if I know that, like, I'm doing things differently than I was 5 years ago, knowing that I will be, and being ready for that change and looking for that change.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was talking about fear earlier, I was listening to Alex Honnold, the guy that
faces no fear.
Yeah, but he comes across fear. He said there was like a few times when he was making that big climb that like he wasn't sure exactly what to do in a certain circumstance or whether he was going to be able to. He froze a little bit.
Dial it in more to sweat is the grip killer. Like he actually has a definitive thing that stands between him and physical danger. And a lot of people don't have that. It's so abstract of what am I going to do with my life? It's such a bigger problem than where do I put my hand?
Yeah, I was going to say, but what he broke it down to was where am I going to put this finger right now?
Yeah.
This is the only thing that exists on this planet is getting this finger, this foot, and then figuring out where I'm going to put that. Like, so you could
I love this.
Let life become super small. Like, what is it you can do right now? Like, talk about living in the present moment. Like,
so that's how all the bleached clothes got made. Is it felt like the most natural and productive thing for me to do, to be iterating on the bleach process to the point where all I want to do some days is I'm like, God, I just wish I could be bleaching again. But then it gets to the point of, okay, now you have even more clothes that because I don't want to have a brand. I don't like. The more that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to develop a name and then a place to direct people, it's something I'd have to keep up. And at a certain point, there's a likelihood that my entire life would be hard to switch over at a certain point. So I just don't even want to start that. And kind of rejecting that has not gone well. But I'm doing it in Eugene, Oregon, dude. This is not the place to be in clothing. So I just did it in the wrong biome.
There's nothing to be ashamed of in failing.
Well said. Hey, anyone who takes shame in failing is not ever going to succeed. You got to just look at failure as closer.
This is kind of a thing with like putting identity. Like if your identity is based in this and it doesn't work out, how are you going to feel as a human being?
Totally.
You're going to feel like shit.
Well said. And that's why from the start I did. And maybe I'm just preventing myself from ever feeling it by not having an identity. Like that's the whole thing is I've never really failed at anything because I've never attached my identity to anything. But it makes it hard for people to put me in a box. And I've learned that people do want to put people people have a lot going on in their life.
People put themselves in a box.
Well said.
Have you ever watched Landman?
No.
There's like a conversation he has with his daughter where she calls a guy a loser. And, essentially he says there's winners and losers, and about how when you go to do something you're going to fail sometime and that makes you a loser.
At least you're playing the game of life.
Even if you're going to be a winner in the end. So you have to be a loser to be a winner oftentimes.
Definitely.
And so
doesn't make it feel better in the moment.
If that's what this is, who knows, maybe
I'm
it will
happy to
blow
take
up,
it as a loss. Well, the whole thing is the way I see it is I'm happy to take it as a loss because it's just like, and honest to God, I do think that this is radically better than tie-dye in terms of the actual fidelity of the design, the cost of getting it done. Like, I think that once it does get picked up by one of these fucking fashion houses, then it could have a large impact on clothing going forward in life. It's like, well, instead of tie-dyeing, people could bleach at home and make their own. And like really, like that's the whole beauty of it. It started because a lot of the ones that I'd get were stained or something. And I was like, well, if it's bleached to hell, it's impossible to notice a stain. There's something about the perfect clothes, like people wanting perfection, that I think is one of the bases of anxiety. Of like, you get a nice new hoodie and then you don't really live life to the fullest if you're trying to keep it clean. Like people with brand new shoes don't go walk in mud. And it's like, how much of life are you limiting by trying to keep an item perfect? It's not even a person. It's not even like your kid or your partner. It's like, so are you keeping it for a persona that you built, like an identity of someone who has clean clothes, or an identity of someone who is, and I guess I grew up probably pretty privileged enough that I find it enjoyable to have people see me as someone who just wears pajamas around all the time. But I think ideally everyone should prioritize comfort. Comfort is king.
Well, one thing I would say, like,
Yay's king.
You said, like, if this is a failure, it's only going to be a failure if you don't learn a lesson from it.
Yeah. I learned too many lessons from it. That's the tricky part, man. It's integrating all the lessons going forward. Everyone for the past year of my life told me, like, well, Saturn's return, you're bound to have a shitty year. And I'm like, can people stop fucking saying that to 27-year-olds? Maybe 27-year-olds could have a good year if everyone didn't treat them as if they're bound to have some existential. I really think that what we say does impact our lives. And when I meet a 27-year-old, I'm going to be like, you're going to have the best year of your life, just to fuck with them. Or just like opposite of what because I think people even don't give opportunities to people who are perceptively going through a period like where people think, this person isn't going to be at their best. I'm like, we should just, I think
well, no one owes you anything, you know, like,
well said.
You don't owe people that are coming to you. If you ever get in a position, you know, you have a responsibility to those around you, you know, and they have a responsibility to show themselves worthy. And
well said. Wait, dig into that, because that's what I've been working on the most my entire life is how to come to people who don't owe me anything and be someone or something of value enough to get there. Because especially as you're communicating with higher, like, it's insane that I can text Naval for me. And then he puts out a podcast. He's like, if you're going to text me, it better be important. And I'm like, well, what constitutes important? It's an interesting thing. And at a certain point, I'm like, well, block me if you're going to block me. And then there's a certain amount of bravery in FaceTiming Dove Charney, the founder of American Apparel, every day. That I think that's part of what builds my self-confidence is I'm like, who's doing this? And it's led to a lifelong friendship. I love you, Dove. I love that his name rhymes with love. Love the Dove. Mm-hmm. And he's someone who has had such an outsized positive impact on people, and specifically like immigrants. And by just giving people an actual job, doing something where they have a better life, it's so inspirational that I think I've set my goals too high. And so it's difficult for me to be like, I don't know, because I don't really ever want employees. That's a lot of stress for me, is then upkeeping a stream of revenue, or else multiple families. Like, he has such an amount of pressure of like how many families ultimately are besides being clothed, but being fed by that I'm like, I just look at him and I'm like, why should I even be FaceTiming him? And it's because I do have the conviction that the clothing will have that big of an outsized impact.
I don't eventually know him, but I do know that in the position that he's in right now, like you're saying, I don't want employees. You can say, I don't want employees now. Mm-hmm. He was probably at a point where he was an employee, like thinking how hard it might be to have employees, but then he like gets put in charge of a few and then starts to see how things work. And then he's like, he started by buying clothes in the US and selling them in Canada. And then he actually moved to LA on my birthday, pretty much like July 4th, 1997. I'm born 7/7/97. And he's kind of been his, like, not only his own boss, but the boss of a whole host of people for a long time. And the biggest thing that I ever got was when I was talking to him, seeing how he communicates to multiple people or a whole room of people. I grew so much in just seeing the possibility, like just how people in those positions communicate taught me a whole host about the world. Like, just being remotely in the presence of people who have achieved greatness, I think, is how I grow the most. So I end up being very needy, and by being like, come on, please let me mentor or apprentice under you. I guess that's what I'm kind of wanting to pitch, is to apprentice under one of these people whom I really respect. You're just getting out of an apprenticeship, and I'm just looking to go into one. You got to be willing to do the dirty work.
Definitely. Hey, when I got back from LA, I wrote a dream list, and on it was Fall Guy. I'm like, if someone has to take the fall, I would be honored to take the fall if it worked out, if I knew that I was saving for Yay or Dove. Elon Musk has too much going on. I didn't accept being a fall guy for him. But like, aside from that, I'm like, really, I just want to be a location scout, talent scout, model scout. Because I'm like, I like just going around and finding very beautiful locations, people who are charismatic and want to be heard and have something to say and express, like you. That's why I'm like, hey, I haven't done a podcast in a long time, but I'm like, you've known me forever, and I also respect you, man. Mm-hmm. So I really like giving people like you at least a microphone to. This will all get fed into AI someday. So the way I see it is you're having an impact on future generations.
Hopefully the AI likes me.
Dude, the AI, fuck you, AI. So then in comparison to me, it will like you.
Thanks for being the fall guy.
See, I think that's like, if I had a company and someone said, hey, I'll even be a fall guy for you, I'd be like, let's group this guy a little bit differently. So that's my attempt in all of this, is to be put in a box that no one thought would ever be a box. Like whoever applies to be a fall guy.
You don't really want to be a fall guy, though, if you don't have to.
Well, if I don't have to, and I don't think I'd have to. That's the whole beauty of the whole situation, is I'm just offering it as a contingency plan. And it's not like I signed a document that said, hey, if anything ever comes up, pretend like Tyger. But I'm like, honestly, I'd be in court and I'd be like, I fucking did it. I'm the devil. Because I'm like, there's a certain, I do believe in karma, and I do believe that people can essentially farm karma, like in a video game where you just go, get low level, whatever. Like I've been just giving out clothes. I used to give out the Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World book. I think that there's ways of just raking up karma. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, I have feeling the confidence that if and when I do die, I at least have the best shot at the most religious heavens, or like hypothetically, like you were a good soul. I'm like, that's the best use case of my life. But money is a necessity, is the reality that I'm coming to facing. But it's my weak point in life. And how do you, much like you don't know what you don't know, I don't have a village or a team that has that complementary, and everyone's like, well, you should figure it out. I'm like, I want to lean into my strengths. So I'm curious, do you have, when in life have you faced compensatory for your whatever your weakness is in life? Dead air.
Probably, sadly, my marriage.
Really?
Yeah. Probably areas that I'm weak.
I mean, hey, I'm an open book in that, in the sense of...
my wife has been strong, but sometimes that's led to her having to take on too much.
So I'd say I was in the exact same position.
Kids, I'm away working quite a bit, and a lot has fallen on her that I wish hadn't, responsibility-wise. And thank God she has the talent and the strength in those areas, but,
I'll always appreciate a person who will shout out their partner, or any person in their life on the show. So that's really cool that you have this self.
And then another way of saying it is, I worked at a job where my operating partner that was above me, she said, she made a speech about how, every organization needs different shaped puzzle pieces.
Definitely.
And if you have all the same shaped puzzle pieces, you're going to miss out on certain things.
Definitely.
And I was thinking about all of our management team, and we each had different skills and different things, and we were just a mismatched bunch of puzzle pieces, but together we were able to get stuff done because I was good at this, they were good at that.
What field of work was that?
I cut myself, and one of the girls was just like, come over here, and she's just kind of rough around the edges, but that rough around the edges, she was able to just deal with this blood and all this stuff and take care of it. And I was like no one else in this restaurant would have just
done it.
Brute force fixed my bleeding finger,
And I bet not only you went home feeling good, she went home feeling probably, everyone feels the best when they feel hey, God used me, I'm a vessel. And when you have an application to actually use your talents and abilities to the highest level is when I personally feel the most fulfilled. And so it's man, how to make a LinkedIn for cosmic fulfillment. That's, hey, that's a side project of mine.
That's another thing that I think relates to what I was saying earlier about identity is like one thing I'm curious about right now personally is fulfillment when it has nothing to do with anything. Fulfillment that just has to do with, like, first and foremost, me being me, you know.
With 6 kids, you probably don't have a lot of time to think about that. So
it's been...
I guess I'm at a blessed point where I do have the time to do that. So what would I do to start? I mean, you mentioned Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which I was like, I'll read it. Hey, if I ever come across that book, that's definitely one I'll pick up and read.
I haven't read the whole thing. I've watched like summaries of it on YouTube.
It's been vaguely
heard
positive.
A lot of stuff, but you know, he's just I think there's wisdom in it. I wouldn't follow any man 100% or any woman 100% in what they're saying. That's where cults kind of develop, you know.
Cults do get stuff done. I mean,
sometimes, yeah.
What if there could be just a positive? I mean, the U.S. and the U.S. dollar, like all of these are kind of cults in an aspect that everyone believes in it and participates in it. And for a while, everyone was like, Tyger, are you like fighting the monetary system? I'm like, no, I'm just not good at pricing stuff. So I'd give away, like, I mean, hey, you saw how embarrassingly inadequate I am about talking about money or putting prices to things earlier. And that's just been my entire life in a way where I'm stuck at the magnet of 0, where it's like to develop that skill would require pretty much a different life. Because I'm always like, I'm going to let money stand between someone who I love's family having the highest quality clothes. Hey, that hoodie will probably last forever. I mean, she can pass it down to other kids. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, I was trying to give you more clothes.
If you don't survive, you won't be around long enough doing that to give clothes to people 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Definitely.
So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, basically.
I can agree with that. Some phrase that I read that definitely had an impact was every man has the angst of feeling like they aren't living up to their highest potential. And I think I have maybe been shooting for the 100% like achievement of like, like waking up and being like, I could do more with my day. Mm-hmm. That's probably the only like angst-based feeling that I'm trying to absolve right now. What do you do when you face that?
There's kind of the yin and the yang. Like I've heard a saying where a man had 2 stones in his pocket and one of them he pulls out and it says like, I am nothing. I'm a nobody. And then the other stone he pulls out and says, God made this whole world for me. And you pull out whichever stone you need for whatever you're experiencing. And if you get yourself too high on something, you pull out that one stone. You start to feel too low, you pull out the other stone.
I think that's beautiful.
There's a balance.
There is.
And you have to take things with a grain of salt. You can't beat yourself up to your own detriment just because. And I'm not perfect at this at all. Like, I love what you're saying. Something that I'm trying to figure out.
For the longest time, until I reframed my definition of love as Krishnamurti's, Stephen Hawking had a phrase where it was like he cheated on his wife, and Joe Pera and Adult Swim had a thing where he was like, you know, you got to wonder, he spends his whole life looking at the cosmos, and he must think, on one hand, with all of this, who is to ever cosmically care if one scientist cheats on his wife? But the other stone of that would be, in all of this chaos, finding someone who you can care about and treating it as if it is special. Like we have as much meaning as we give into our own lives, which can be a double-edged sword. Everything's a double-edged sword. Man,
and the more one of them makes you a sociopath, and
well, hey, sociopath. I heard someone reframed it as low affective disorder, which is just Elon Musk says the term suicidal empathy, and I think that's true, man. Like I hear just a lot of people complaining about problems that aren't impacting their lives in ways that raise the generalized anxiety of people. I'm like, if people who are dealing with the problem raise attention to like, and we need better systems of people who are just dealing with the problem to actually get it solved. So some people are helping others rightfully, but like people getting upset on the behalf of others and like trying to bring up problems on the behalf of others was one of my biggest gripes for a while. I'm like, why are people complaining? Like I'm doing something or saying something that like you are okay with, but sometimes people in your position would be like, I might be okay with it, but I know that if in a hypothetical world there was another person here, they wouldn't be okay with it. I'm like, it's not that situation. I guess I got a little lost on a tangent there. I was using slur.
You're basically talking about people trying to
feel righteous.
Righteous
indignation.
Fight for people that aren't even asking for it.
Yeah. Because at some level, people probably do feel good about like, yeah, like they go to bed at night being like, those people would totally thank me if they were here. But the way I see it is I'm like, well, they're not, and you're not getting the thanks, and you ruined a perfectly good moment. But I was very radical. I've simmered down a lot in life this past month. I really don't think I was that off basis, though, the whole time. I don't know, man. Life is definitely a balancing act of believing that your worldview is correct and should be like kept adhered to, and like changing jobs or like changing belief systems. Like you made probably a big change in life when you, I don't know about like renounced religion, but essentially switched away more formally from it. That's an example of being like, rather than like, all right, my existing belief system is correct and should be adhered to. Like you can kind of continue down that because it does probably serve a lot. It's probably helped humanity cohere into larger groups for a long time. But man, what about that New Testament? And that's why I think Ye's I really do think that he's taking the Bible and making it just more applicable to daily life people. Which I'm like, that's epic. Can I please be an apostle? Not a Judas one. So is there only one bad one? 50 shekels?
Something like that.
I wonder what the exchange rate is plus inflation.
Yeah, I know. Well, silver's at an all-time high.
If someone ever offers me silver to see, I'm the fall guy. I'm the person who I want people to come and offer that money to, and I'll be like, nah. You know, like openly being a fall guy is just such an interesting position to be in. Like I like being something that people don't have an answer for. I think it was like Ray Kumpf, some random person said it, of be something that people don't have an answer for. And that has served me quite well in life, just because the inability of people to put me in a box, it has the detriment of sometimes people are like, I don't have the fucking time for you. Mm-hmm. But it does have the benefit of people who have big personalities or are more used to that, do see it as a special, like, okay, this person isn't just a bland basic thing. It's like this, there's something there, and it's just kind of about refining it. So I'm still in the refining phase.
Refining, like, if you put your superpowers or your personality out there in every situation exactly the same, it's not strategic, you know. So, and it doesn't mean as much.
I could use that advice a couple months ago.
It doesn't mean as much, you know. And there's a time and a place. Kind of like, I don't care if my kids cuss. I don't want them cussing around grandma, you know. So
that's very beautiful of you to say. I want to uplift. Hey, that got me in a lot of trouble, but I think kids just not even have. It's kind of like how kids who drink wine over in France, they have less alcoholism. Mm-hmm. It does seem like if kids never had like, that's a bad word, they would be less their own mental warden in life. They're like the belief of I can't say things leads to I can't think things.
I thought cussing was the worst thing you could do on earth when I was like 5. And I wanted to cuss a whole bunch when I was 6, you know?
Definitely.
It just brings you to it.
What you reject definitely does bubble up. So I think I'm at a place where I'm not rejecting any desire or any aspect of myself. But then in that, I'm just like, okay, so now what though? I have to do something with like the whole desire is suffering. It does come to the point of like, well, I do have to do something with my life. And if I distinctively don't want it to be clothing, what do I want it to be? And after participating in music for a while, I don't think I want it to be music either. Kind of like people say you go to college, you don't go to college to learn what you want to do, you go to college to learn what you don't want to do. I think that extends to a lot of life. Like I bet in 10 years you might be interested in switching away from lineman work. I think people are meant to kind of shake it up, cross train, because you get a whole bunch of different perspectives. And for me, every time I have, it's Scott Adams just passed away. He was one of Naval's friends, but he taught me the phrase of skill stacking, of like Just the more different things that you can be the 50th best person in the world at makes you the single best person at those 12 things, rather than being like, I'm just going to be the best runner. It's like you're competing with Usain Bolt and about 1 million other people who have made that their singular goal. But if it's like pole vaulting's even like running plus another thing. And for me, I'm just, physical is out for me. There's people have a level of dedication beyond me. I think I'm like a mental marathoner. I've been sleeping every day now, but there was a time in my life where I'd semi-regularly go 3 to 5 days without sleep, up to 7 days. Sometime without drug use is the whole crazy aspect. Everyone always told me that. And much like advocating for staring into the sun, I was being bombastic in it. But like I got my blood work done and the doctor's just like, it looks great. It shows that you have marijuana and you said you weren't. I'm like, God, I really try not to ever lie. But I do think that slight mistruths to doctors and police officers would ultimately cosmically be, hey, I only answer to God. And I'm like, I think God is okay about fuzzing the details sometimes.
Well, I know when I was in organic chemistry, I pulled 2 all-nighters a week for like months straight. And that had a big detriment on my brain. Did it? At the time.
I have the insane belief that our brain is somewhat like a katana in the sense that it can be a growth and then like a quenching. So for a while, I'd literally take NN-DMT to complexify, and then I'd take MDMA to simplify. And how that will play out will be shown. But I've stopped doing that a while ago. I'm actually sober for the first time in my life, especially like kratom was a 9-year-long addiction that I don't wish upon anyone. And that's part of the reason I stopped giving advice is like early on, I would tell people it's like, well, I think it's better than heroin or something. But I was also advocating for people to take fentanyl because it wouldn't be laced with something. I've advocated a lot of crazy beliefs that I have some regret towards. But I think that's the aspect of saying anything publicly is that we're always just trying our best, and you kind of have to think.
It's 5 years later. We're an idiot back then.
Totally. Yeah, I guess the podcast is.
But then it makes you think a little bit about what you're at now and be a little cautious about certain things you can just give it hell and do your best,
Instead of the jackass intro of don't try this at home, maybe I'll start every podcast of remember I'm an idiot. Anyways, because I'm like, it is good. When I do watch Joe Rogan these days, because I did get the honor to meet him in person. So he has a special place in my heart when I listen to his show, because I'm like, I met that guy. All I did was shake his hand and be like, dude, thank you for what you've done to communication. Because I do think he has had such a positive impact fighting not only the shorter attention span, but also just making it seem like by saying really stupid, retarded shit, he's shown it, and it's such a big public way, he's showing that it's like, yeah, you don't have to be perfect to say something. It's kind of on the listener to intake it, and it's kind of on them. Like, if we're all taking responsibility for everything in our own life, it frees you up a little bit. I'd be a horrible cult leader. I really would. I'd be like, I don't know, do whatever the fuck you guys want to do. Don't listen to me, though.
That's the cult.
And that's why I'm also probably never going to have someone who has employees. It's because I look at them in the eyes and I'd be like, well, what do you want to do with your day? Do you want some free clothes for whatever you're going to do? And then I never see them again. And I'm like, well, let's hope that's cosmically like in the cosmic ledger. I don't think that that's too selfish to wish that I think everyone wants when they die to see some level of a score screen of like, hey, you made this many people happy. This many people had a crush on you. You had this positive an impact on this many people. You fed this many people. I want to be in the leaderboard of clothing people and making people feel confident of like, I have cool clothes that are one of kind. Like, I want to make people feel special. We're living in a world where we're supposed to, none of us. And hey, we have gone for an hour and a half. So if you want to call it,
maybe like 5 more minutes or so.
Yeah, let's hit it. So with all this being said, babysitter. I was the baby, and you really kind of looked more over Colton than me. But what was I like as a youth?
What I noticed, I think I've told you this. This is one thing I learned about kids is like you and Colton kind of went through phases, and it was kind of like there were times where you were in your terrible whatevers and you were annoying. And
Terrible 28s. I'm a 28-year-old, 8-year-old, that's for sure.
Colton was just so fun to play with and be around, and then he would go into this weird phase, and then he would be like annoying, and you would be like cool as hell, and I'd have more fun playing with you, and then there'd be times where you're both just cool as hell, and times where it was
do your 6 kids have a dynamic that they group up in, like 4 of them and 2 of them, or 3 and 3? Like, that's because I've only had 1 sibling, so I've had interplay of one other person's dynamic.
There's just different sort of phases, but like now they're a pretty cohesive group.
Yeah, you got a gang. I think any amount of over 5 people could be considered a gang. So you have a gang of kids that really, if they all adhere to being like, yo, we back each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. They've got each other's back.
Nice.
The youngest, he's probably going to mature the fastest because he's got 5 above him that are teaching him to...
Hey,
yeah.
You don't have to worry about cussing too much. Like they have 5 older kids showing, because I think I had an expedited growth in the sense of I saw the level to which Colton would get in trouble for things, and I would be like, okay, so I can do that. Mm-hmm. Or like, this is the result of that. Seeing a parent interact with other kids probably really does like impact the kid. Hey man,
getting back to like you though, like it was always fun having you around. It was always fun playing basketball with you guys. One of the sweetest memories that like I had was, I remember your parents went out on a date and they're like, okay, so when it's bedtime at this time, bring him into our bedroom and just lay with them, read them a book, and then just lay with them. And I just remember like...
I have a vivid fear of please don't leave. I've always had a fear of sleeping.
Well, I was laying there, I'd read books, and then I looked over kind of, and Colton was on one arm, and like you were on the other arm, just passed out, and I just remember passing out. Finally, like waking up, and your parents came in, and I got up and I left and stuff.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, man.
It was a sweet memory, something that, like, it also is like made me feel part of the family. Like I was trusted. That's a very like intimate thing, to trust someone enough to like put your children to sleep and like,
because you trust one person,
be like a big brother,
and they yell at the kid, and then the kid never like. I mean, I honestly think things as small as someone yelling at a kid can impact them for the rest of life. Like, I get really deeply affected when people yell. I'm a little bit of a baby in that sense. So thanks for you didn't inflict any harm on my development. So thank you. I think the experience you had is severely lacking today, of like people in their teen and just like people interacting with youth in a way where it's just like uplifted and welcomed, of like, hey, see what it's like to be around kids. Instead, it's like, unless that's your kid, you should never interact with them unless it's a paid thing. And that's why I think like therapy is kind of in replacing friendship with like a paid person who you talk to. Not that like everyone should be burdening each other with their stuff, but there's an interesting aspect of commoditizing every form of relationship, to the point where I'm like, 20 years ago, you could probably ask someone for a ride across LA and they'd be like, yeah. But nowadays they'd be like, well, this, I'd probably get $200 if I Ubered you there. Like, people have money injected in every single interpersonal relationship. And I guess that's what maybe I have such a vehement hatred for. And I'm kind of...
I think it's not sexy, but moderation in all things.
Including moderation.
And that's every once in a while you got to do something crazy, but for the most part, like, you can't just be a guy who, let's say, you simply drive Uber. You can't give everyone a free ride.
Totally.
You're not going to be able to have gas, and then how many more people can you give rides to? But
totally. You
can charge everyone, and then this one person, like, you see a girl in trouble on the side of the road, you can just be like, are you okay? You need to ride somewhere? You need me to take you to the gas station up there or something? Like,
female privilege. That's a privilege that's probably not talked about much, but if there's a guy on the side of the road and a girl on the side of the road, I think they probably get a little bit of different treatment by society at large, which is that we should not be fighting against these core truths. We should just be like, so what do we do? Just know. But like, they also face a risk. Like there's pros and cons to everything. I just think people shouldn't fight their nature. Like I really am of the belief that it's like everyone feels cursed and cosmically not right in their own skin at some point in their life. Directing that toward I am inherently wrong, I think is probably the genesis of a lifelong like battle that you can't win. It's the world that's wrong, not me. No, I'm kidding.
What do they say? A house divided will fall, and there's a lot of forces right now creating division.
Definitely.
And when you're being divided, you're looking at the opposite. You're not looking at everything else around you.
I think people talking about what they have in common as opposed to reasons to not cohere would be a radically positive like direction to head. Like I never talk about politics because I don't have an opinion on it really with anyone, but just when I was staying at hostels that weren't hostile in LA, it's like one of the people there, it was really funny. Right when I met him, he's like, "You look really Jewish." I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but I'll take it. He's like, it's the whole head shape. It's everything. He was a black guy who had white Jewish parents. And it was so funny because I'm like, I think there's even a line for this. Richer than white people with black kids, scarier than black people with ideas. And I'm just like, and he was just like, yeah, man, I had a really interesting upbringing because he got to see race from a really interesting perspective. And I'm like, I think it's just fun to just hear where people are at with everyone has their own little unique life experience, and we should not be trying to normalize everyone to having the same experience. We should just be like, cool, your experience is different than mine. Let's talk about what we have in common, because I've learned the most just from the podcast has probably given me the most growth in life. This podcast was very not only healing, but growth for me. So thank you.
Growth.
I love it. Anyone who listens this long, an hour and a half, this is the Babysitter podcast. So if you ever hear a lyric that says, we can say the babysitter, this is the babysitter. You're a stand-up person.
Ex-babysitter.
And you raised me to be the man I am today. So thank you. And God bless.
Absolutely.
All right, cutting it.